They called her a seductress, a temptress who brought empires to their knees. Yet, what if that story, the one passed down for 2,000 years, was never true? What if Cleopatra, the woman history turned into a myth, was not the villain Rome wanted us to believe she was, but the last guardian of a dying civilization? 2,000 years ago, the world witnessed the fall of Egypt's final pharaoh, a woman whose name would echo through eternity, Cleopatra VII, the Queen of the Nile. History remembers her as the lover of powerful men, a master manipulator who seduced her way to the throne and the symbol of a fallen kingdom. But this image was never hers. It was Rome's creation, a political weapon designed to destroy not just her rule, but her legacy. When Rome conquered Egypt, it didn't merely take her land, it rewrote her identity. The Cleopatra that survived in Western memory was not the woman who once ruled from Alexandria's marble halls, but the ghost Rome built to justify her downfall. When Octavian, later Augustus, waged war against Cleopatra and Mark Antony, he fought not only with legions, but with words. To defeat them on the battlefield was not enough. He needed to defeat them in the minds of his people. And so he transformed Cleopatra from a queen defending her nation into a foreign temptress, corrupting Rome's noble sons. Every speech, every poem, every engraving repeated the same lie, that Cleopatra used her beauty to enslave men, to threaten Rome, to poison the natural order. It was one of the most effective propaganda campaigns in history, and it worked. Octavian declared himself the savior of Rome, the man who had liberated it from the claws of the evil Egyptian queen. Even the coins minted after her death carried that message. Rome triumphant, Egypt defeated. But behind those silver portraits and marble statues, another story whispered in the shadows. Cleopatra was not a creature of desire, but a scholar, a strategist, a ruler of exceptional intellect. She spoke at least 9 languages and was educated in mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, and medicine. She studied the works of Homer and Plato. She debated with generals, and she conversed with scholars about the movement of the stars. She was not trained to charm. She was trained to rule. To truly understand Cleopatra, one must leave behind Rome's slander and return to Alexandria, the heart of the ancient world, a city of marble and light, where science, art, and philosophy intertwined. Here, Cleopatra reigned not as a temptress, but as a philosopher queen. She led her people through famine and political instability with empathy and foresight. When crops failed, she personally opened the granaries and distributed food to her people. She lowered taxes and strengthened Egypt's economy when much of the Mediterranean was collapsing under debt and civil war. Her rule was marked not by vanity, but by resilience. She embodied Egypt's independence, its spirit, at a time when every neighboring kingdom had already fallen to Rome. And that was precisely what made her dangerous. To a world dominated by men, a woman who could think, command, and lead without permission was more terrifying than any army. Rome feared her intellect, so it recast her intelligence as manipulation, her ambition as deceit, and her charisma as witchcraft. It twisted her into the serpent of the Nile, a threat to be crushed, a myth to be controlled. Even her greatest alliances were rewritten. The world remembers Cleopatra and Julius Caesar as a story of passion, but in truth, it was a story of survival and strategy. When Cleopatra was overthrown by her brother, she smuggled herself into the palace wrapped inside a carpet, not to seduce Caesar, but to confront him face to face and reclaim her throne. Their partnership was political. She needed Rome's power to stabilize Egypt, and Caesar needed Egypt's wealth to finance his ambitions. Together, they restored order to one of the most turbulent regions on earth. But when Caesar was assassinated, Cleopatra's fate once again hung in the balance. Then came Mark Antony, Rome's great general and Caesar's heir in spirit. Their union, too, was born of politics, yet history reduced it to a romance doomed by lust. In truth, Cleopatra and Antony were equals, two sovereigns united by a shared defiance against Octavian's growing empire. They didn't fall because of love. They fell because they challenged the man who would become the first emperor of Rome. Octavian could not allow their story to survive, so he rewrote it. He called her a seductress, a witch, a foreign evil, and the world believed him. When Octavian's legions finally entered Alexandria, Cleopatra faced her end not with hysteria, but with composure. She knew what awaited her: humiliation, captivity, and being paraded through Rome as a conquered trophy. So she chose death on her own terms. Whether it was by the bite of an asp or a vial of poison, her final act was one of ultimate defiance. She denied Rome the spectacle it desired and turned her own death into an immortal symbol of resistance. They could claim her throne, but not her dignity. After her death, Egypt became a Roman province, and her memory was systematically erased. Statues were defaced, inscriptions destroyed, and libraries, including the Great Library of Alexandria, fell into ruin and silence. The Romans had killed the queen, but they feared her even in death. And so they buried her beneath layers of lies, centuries of art and literature turning her into a caricature of seduction, her mind forgotten beneath the weight of fantasy. Shakespeare would make her the tragic lover. Hollywood would crown her the goddess of beauty. Yet almost no one would remember Cleopatra the scholar, the scientist, the ruler who fought to preserve her people's identity in the face of empire. It's easier, after all, to remember a woman as a fantasy than as a force. Today, after 2 millennia, archaeologists and historians are finally restoring her truth. They now describe Cleopatra not as a mere queen of beauty, but as one of the most capable rulers of her age, fluent in languages, skilled in chemistry, commanding in diplomacy, and unmatched in intellect. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt, yes, but also the last true heir of an ancient wisdom that stretched back 3,000 years. When she died, the age of pharaohs died with her, an age of temples, hieroglyphs, and gods who walked among mortals. Rome may have conquered her land, but it unknowingly inherited her vision. The empire that tried to erase her became what she already was, a civilization of order, power, and divine kingship. Cleopatra did not lose. She transformed. For 2,000 years, men have written her story and called her many names. A queen, a lover, a goddess, a liar. Yet behind every version lies the same truth. They feared her. She was not destroyed by love. She was destroyed by propaganda, by a world that could not accept a woman who ruled through intellect rather than seduction. She was the last flame of an ancient civilization, extinguished but never forgotten. And though Rome tried to bury her beneath centuries of lies, the truth rises again, like the Nile after the storm. Because Cleopatra's greatest secret was never her beauty, nor her lovers, nor her death. Her greatest secret was that even erased, she endures. Not as a myth, but as a message from Egypt's last queen whispered across the ages that power takes many forms, And that truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way back to the light. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more untold history.